at the Lodge in Round Rock, Texas to play 1-2 PLO with a $5 bring-in, and you're in for a treat. This is going to be my biggest win ever in a single session. Let's jump right in. We're in middle position and dealt Queen 10, 9-8 suited in spades to our Queen, and a double board bomb pot. We're in for the maximum of $1,000, and the first board runs out the Jack 7-5 all spades, and then 10-9-6 with 2 diamonds. We've flopped the third nut flush on the top board, and top 2 pair plus a double gutter on the second board. However, we are up against the entire field, and it's very easy to get ourselves in a spot where we're beat on both boards by different opponents, so we opt to check and see what happens, and it's checked around. The turns fall the 10 of clubs and the 9 of clubs, so now we still have the third nuts on the top board, and on the bottom board we've improved to the nuts with a full house. Now you may be thinking, Anthony, you don't have the nuts on the second board. The nuts would be 10s full. And while you would normally be correct, you have to see that the top board, a 10 just fell, so it's impossible to be up against 10s full now. The small blind leads out for 75, and we just call, as our hand is very strong, and we don't mind letting some other players in to donate chips. The hijack comes along for 75 as well. The rivers fall the 8 of spades and the 10 of hearts. The small blind leads for 175. We raise to 500. The hijack folds, and action is on the small blind, who thinks for a bit before putting in the call.
You have left here. Send full downstairs.
Check it down.
Good.
It might have been.
I'm gonna get you 500.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
The $10 straddle is on. 3 players in middle and late position limp in, and on the button we're holding King King, 7-3, double suited in spades and diamonds. I opt to just call the $10. While this hand looks pretty, the 7 and the 3 just have too wide of a gap to rely upon for making a straight. The suited kings are nice, but can also get you into trouble making second best flushes in a game that favors the nuts. We have position on the entire field, and I prefer to keep the pot size manageable until it's time to pump it up. There's a fucking big surprise. The player who straddled the 10 makes it 50 out of position. These degenerates just can't help themselves. All 3 limpers call, and we come along as well. The flop falls King 10-6 with 2 diamonds. What an absolute dream flop for me. I've got top set with the second nut flush draw, and my 7 blocks anyone drawing to the 10 high straight. While I don't block the Queen Jack straight draw directly, having 2 kings in my hand blocks some of the hand combinations that would contain Queen Jack. When it checks to me on the button, I'm feeling pretty confident in my hand. You can bet anywhere from half pot to full pot in this spot. Being checked to on the button, some players will be suspicious of any bet you make, assuming you're trying to steal. So I have to go for the maximum, betting the full pot of $255. The cutoff is a non-believer and decides to look me up after his call. He has about 500-ish behind. The turn is a great one, falling the 6 of clubs, giving us the nut full house. When he checks to me, I decide to check back. I want him to either catch up with a hand he thinks is good on the river, or to try and bluff me on the river when he senses weakness in my turn check. My hand may look like a whiff straight or flush draw that is trying to get to the river without putting more money in the pot. The river falls the Queen of Hearts, and now he leads into me for $200. Most likely this is just a cheap steal attempt and I won't be able to get any more chips out of him, but with the nut full house I have an easy raise, hoping that he has something strong enough to stack off with. He folds instantly, so my turn check worked in getting my opponent to bluff an additional 200 on the river. Plays like this can really help boost your win rate. If I continue betting the turn, he likely folds, and that's the end of it.
Pot.
765 plus 6, 1365.
He folds.
That's 1 outer on you, buddy. At 8 and a diamond.
We're on the button in a $15 bomb pot, and we're dealt the Ace, Queen, Jack 8 suited in spades to our Jack. The first flop falls Jack 6-2 with 2 spades, and the second flop falls King 10-9 with 2 diamonds. It's checked to the undergun player who bets $60. Middle position calls, and when it gets back to us, we flop the nuts on the second board, and we have the naked ace of diamonds blocking the nut flush draw. On the first board, we have top pair, top kicker, plus the 4th nut flush draw. If we call, we risk allowing ourselves to get caught in the middle between opponents who have us beat on different boards. There's always some risk that even against one opponent here, we could be running into a spot where we're getting free-rolled. But overall, I think if I can get this pot heads up, I'll be in an okay shape, and I take the aggressive route and announce pot raising to 330. Under the gun calls 330. Middle position thinks for a long time and eventually shrugs and makes the call as well. Pot is now over $1,000. The first turn falls the 3 of hearts and the second turn the ace of hearts. Both opponents check it over to us, and the texture on both boards hasn't really changed a ton. Given the size of the pot compared to stack sizes, we feel comfortable going with it and bet the full pot of $1,080. Under the gun asks how much and then just calls. Once again, middle position thinks for a bit and eventually calls all in for $595. The first river falls the jack of clubs, the second river the 3 of spades. Under the gun shoves all in on the river, and we have the nuts on one board and have rivered 3 jacks with an ace kicker on the other, and we make the call for our last $750, ballooning this pot to over $5,000. The shorter stack mucks his hand, and Sammy has gotten massively coolered here. He turns over King Queen, Jack 10. We both have the same nuts straight, but on the second board I have 3 jacks with an ace kicker, and he has 3 jacks with a king kicker, meaning I win 3/4 of this massive pot.
What was the initial bet? In beginning, 1,000, how much?
80 on the turn.
No, how much is the bet on a flop? 3, and just how much did I lose is what I want to know.
I don't remember the bet on the flop. I'm sorry. Yeah, you bet 60.
4,000.
Didn't you bet 60 on the flop? He called and I potted it.
Yeah.
So it was like 3 something.
3 something and 1,000 out.
I bet 1,000.
How do I lose 800? How did I lose? How much did I lose? I lost.
Well, you're getting quartered.
Right. So
I don't know. I'm not good at math. That's the dealer's job. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
We're on the cutoff holding King, Jack 5 suited in clubs to our king. We missed our small blind, so we had to post $1. There's an early position raised to 20 and 2 callers. We have a hand we want to see a flop with, but there's little reason to bloat the pot with an additional raise. The 5 absolutely kills our hand as it offers nothing of value, but the suited king in pair plus connectivity with the jack makes the hand playable enough for 1 raise. The cutoff, small blind, big blind, and under the gun call, and we wind up going 7-handed to a flop. The flop is Ace 5-2 Rainbow, and it's checked around. The turn is an interesting one, falling the King of Hearts. The small blind checks, the big blind leads for around half pot, betting $75. Under the gun calls 75. It folds around to us, we've turned middle set, and given no one bet the flop, it's doubtful we're up against top set of aces. However, the flop did present a possibility of an opponent having the wheel, so when the big blind leads, they could easily show up with a 3-4 in their hand here. Still, I think if they did actually have the current nuts, they'd be inclined to bet the full pot to protect it from the turn flush draw, unless they themselves hold the flush draw as well. I could raise here to protect against flush and straight draws, as I expect my hand is currently best, but given that I at least have position on my opponents, I opt to keep my hand strength disguised and the pot size manageable to see what develops on the river. The river falls the Jack of Diamonds. The big blind bets $175 pretty quickly, and under the gun folds. I jaw with my opponent for a bit, but eventually decide to pay him off, and he turns over Ace 9, 7-5 for a flopped 2 pair that I was fortunate to outdraw on the turn.
All right, you're a good guy. I probably owe you for last time. 175? Ace 5? Thought you were going to show me 3-4. All right.
I played like a 3-4.
He's got Ace 5, 9, 7, I think, of hearts. It's a good turn.
Oh, Ace and the river would be so fucking nice for you.
The $10 straddle is on, and we call an early position with Ace Jack 10-9, double suited in hearts and diamonds. The button calls, the small blind calls, the big blind calls, and the straddle checks his option. The flop falls King Queen 9 Rainbow. When it checks to us, we waste no time betting our own hand for the full pot of $50. A flop like this is likely to hit a variety of holdings, and we can be up against 2 pair or set combinations, as well as opponents who have straight draws that we might have to chop with on later streets. With the current nuts, we want to build the pot and also protect our equity. The small blind calls. The turn is the 7 of hearts. The small blind checks it over to us. We still have the nuts, and we've picked up a gut shot straight flush draw on the turn. There's no reason to slow down, as we don't want to let the board pair without charging our opponent the maximum to get there. So we bet $150, and the small blind quickly calls. The river is the 8 of spades, The small blind checks, and while you could bet small to hope to get a crying call out of a set or two pair, I opt to bet big, the full pot of 450.
Pot.
He slams the table in anger and folds. We are under the gun with King, Jack 10, suited in diamonds to our Jack, and we've gotten so used to the straddles to 10 that we put 10 out to call, not realizing we would have to be the one to start the straddle. So it winds up being a raise to $10.
This is straddle or just raise?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so used to the straddles. I guess it's a raise.
Okay, 10, raise.
It's not an angle. I wound up min-raising by mistake. I'm under the gun. It's a little juice for the pot. Little juice for the pot. All right, I need to see a flop of deuce, deuce, deuce. I got a green bird for you if the flop is deuce, deuce, deuce. Make it happen, man. Come on, one time. No.
We get multiple callers, and we go 7 ways to a flop of King 9-6 Rainbow. When action checks to us, we flop top set, a gut shot straight draw, and backdoor diamonds. However, there are some lower straight draws we don't want to allow to see a free turn card, so we bet the full pot of $70.
78.
You guys need a count? No?
Fuck your count.
All right. My friend calls.
Fuck your count.
Our buddy Sammy calls the $70. The small blind calls 70 as well.
All right, pick me, deuce. Need a deuce.
Really? So you like deuces?
A deuce would be great. I always want a deuce.
And the turn falls the 4 of clubs. When the small blind checks, we continue the aggression, betting the full pot of $280.
How are you not scared of shit? I fold. I fold.
What? Fold, okay. It's hard to hear with all the noise.
Both opponents fold, and we take it down.
He folds.
Tell me your kings, please.
I had kings, please.
Guess what I folded?
What did you fold?
I showed him.
Set of nines?
Yes, sir.
Go lay down.
Fuck, no, give me my $2 back because you fucking made set over set.
Right,
Hey, $4 here. Four.
4? All right, there you go.
Yeah, I made up for.
We've been beating up on Sammy all night, so we wind up paying for a 30-minute massage. Here you can hear him thanking me, although he did try to get me to pay for a 60-minute massage.
Thank you, brother.
You're welcome, man.
We're dealt King, Queen, Jack 7 double suited in clubs and spades in the cutoff. Under the gun +1 raises to 20. Early position calls, middle position calls, we call, the button calls, the small blind calls, the big blind calls. We're going 7 ways to a flop of Ace, Queen 10, Rainbow. Under the gun +1 bets 50. There's 2 folds and action is on us. We flop the stone cold nuts, but we don't have many ways to improve our hand except backdoor spades, which wouldn't be to the nuts. You could call to see a safe turn that doesn't pair the board before raising in this spot, but given the original raiser is betting 1/3 pot, I don't think he's that strong, and I don't want to allow others in to pick up their equity with a flush draw on the turn without charging them to run me down. In addition, in a previous hand, I've seen this same player raise out of position with Queen, 4-2, 3 of 1 suit, and then call a raise. So I have to raise the pot to $295. It folds back to the original raiser, who makes the call. The turn is the 2 of hearts, and now our opponent bets the full pot of $735 into us. That was unexpected. He's committed to the hand giving his remaining stack size, and I can't fold with 1 card to come, so I repot to get stacks in.
Can't see it. Pot.
Here's a video.
28 on it.
You know what I'm saying?
735 times.
Twice?
That was the one.
Oh, once? Okay. All right, he's only going once. Okay.
But you know, I had deuces, ace, and 10. Just so that you know.
All right, we're all in.
Yeah, same hand.
Our opponent has Ace, King, Jack 5 with the Ace 5 of hearts. So he was free rolling us on the turn like a motherfucker.
You knew that.
Dodge the bullet.
You dodged. Because I folded deuces with ace 10.
Gotcha,
So
gotcha.
looking at the floor, board gonna not fair, you know?
Whew. Dodge that bullet.
Yeah. He was free rolling, I knew that too. I'm like, he's trying to take advantage of me.
Thank you for no heart.
We're under the gun +1 and bring in for 5, holding Queen, Jack suited in hearts. Middle position calls, the cutoff calls, the button calls, and now the small blind pots it to 40. The big blind calls, we call, middle position, the cutoff, and the button all call as well. The small blind who started this whole mess checks dark. The flop falls King 10-9 Rainbow, and we continue to run like God in these big pots, flopping the nuts with backdoor hearts. We'll be hard-pressed to improve our hand, and this pot is already getting large, so no free cards will be given to my opponents. We bet the full pot, which should be 240, but the dealer announces 235, so that's what I put out. The cutoff calls 235 with about 1,000 behind, and the small blind calls as well. The small blind once again checks dark. The turn falls the 2 of diamonds. We announce pot, and the dealer tells us it's 930, which is close at least. The cutoff folds, the small blind thinks for a bit, then eventually flicks in the call for about 2/3 of his stack, having only around 500 behind. This is the same player that had me free-rolled in the previous hand. The river falls the 8 of clubs. He checks and he has like 20% of the pot remaining in his stack, so we see no reason not to go for it all, and we bet the full pot. He folds and claims to have had a set plus ace-jack for the gut shot. The player at the table who said he was going to leave if everyone didn't straddle to 10 is the same guy who slammed his fist on the table earlier when I continued betting pot on the river and he had a fold. So we're playing ball this hand, and under the gun we've straddled to 10. We look down at the ace-jack 7-4 double suited in clubs and hearts. We wind up going 6 ways to a flop. The flop comes down ace-10-7 with 2 hearts. We flop top and bottom pair plus the 3rd nut flush draw and a backdoor straight draw. But we opt to go for pot control and check. Top and bottom pair and non-nut flushes can be big money burners in PLO. The hijack bets $30, and we're the only caller, but we are heads up out of position. The turn comes the jack of spades, so we've improved to top 2 pair, but we're now losing if our opponent has king-queen, or if he has a set we're behind as well. We check and he checks behind. The river falls the jack of clubs. Hello, beautiful. We bet $100, but he lays it down. We bought 2,000 in chips, and we put the $1,000 maximum to start our session, and fortunately never needed to dip into the reserve. We ran our $1,000 buy-in up to $6,451, turning a total profit on the day of $5,451. This picture includes the additional 1,000 in chips we never needed to put into play. I've been really looking forward to sharing this episode with everyone. It was my best session ever, the biggest one I've ever had. I ran the purest I've ever run. I ran like absolute god. I had people trying to chase me down, and I was charging them the max on the flop, the max on the turn, and they were just going to the river, and they couldn't hit any of their draws against me. So my big hands held up, fortunately, and it's not like that all the time. I wish it was. I wish every session could be this amazing, but I do have some rough sessions coming up in the future that I'll be sharing with you to show you the darker side of PLO. Some comments on my last video that cracked me up. Viewer Entropy mentioned that he couldn't believe I got Vanessa Selps to do my outro, and viewer Sam Ho said that I should call my unique chip shuffle the double fisting. Viewer Umberto Guerrero. Asked if they play any higher than 2-5-10 at the lodge, and I've only been there a few weeks. The 1-2 with a $5 bring in and $10 straddle and so forth under the gun is the only game that I've really seen running. They do have lists for the 5-10 and a 10-25. I haven't seen them go off yet, so I'm really not sure, how frequently those run, if that's just during the big series. That's going to do it for this one. Please be sure to leave any comments or questions you may have down below. I'm happy to respond to everyone, and we will see you in the next episode.
After watching a video like this, sometimes I'll like it, sometimes I'll leave a comment, and sometimes I'll subscribe. Sometimes I'll even do all 3.